everybody, it's Chris from Chris's Train Layout. It is the middle of March 2019. It's been a while since we posted an update video, so I wanted to make a quick one this morning, kind of show you what's been going on the layout this winter, since we're getting into spring and progress is probably going to slow down over the next few months. A lot of the work that's been done has been towards the center of the layout where the station platforms are. We'll look at that in a minute. I've also been spending a lot of time working on trying to figure out a way for me to create my own trees. Tired of buying trees and from the hobby shop and spending what feels like way too much money on O-scale trees. So been doing a lot of research online, looking at YouTube tutorials, and then just trying my hand at it. So we'll look at some of the trees that I've made myself that are around the layout now, and we'll run some trains at the end. So let's get started. So as I said, one of the biggest parts of the layout that I've been working on is this center area. In previous videos, this would have been a big hole. I had it open so I could stand in there and work on that back section of the layout. I still have work to do back here, and I'll show you I've got a pop-out built in so I can still get back there. But this is now filled in and it really kind of completes this section of the layout. Even though it's not near completion, it makes it look a lot nicer. So let's dive in and take a look. The first big piece that we have on the layout is the train station here. This is from Menards. I don't know if this was in the last video or not. It is not on its base. I got this on the O-scale forum, so I just kind of blended it in with the scenery, added a new platform section here with some steps, and then put a little parking area in that needs some work. Beyond that, we've also got the power and light facility is in place. So that kind of comes off that roadway. The road carries around and then crosses the track over by that switch tower that's been on the layout for quite some time. As I mentioned, I needed to have a pop-up so I could still get some work done on that back section of the layout and get back there easily. So you can see the seam goes right through there. So this section here is just a piece of plywood, just pops right up so I can get back and do some work on that back section of the layout. I think overall this came together really, really well. I used the Woodland Scenic Smooth It road system for the roadway. So this section of road here has always been on the layout, at least it has been for a long time. This is actually 1/4-inch plywood here. What I then did is, at this point is where it transitions into that Woodland Scenic Smooth It. And basically that goes all the way around back over to that switch tower. Trying my hand at trying to get some hand painted lines down. You know, it's not really working that well. But the beautiful thing about paint is I can just paint it over with some more asphalt colored paint and try again. So what you see on there is definitely not going to stay. For the yellow lines, I had gotten the Woodland Scenics road striping pen. Not easy to use, at least not for me. So I'm going to try something different. Eventually I'll just color over those, but for now it'll do. But I think really this section of the layout here is really starting to come together. One thing that I still need to work on is this front piece here. We got to do some more ballast work and then some ground foam. But right now it's kind of an easy place for me to leave some tools and things like that. So we're not going to bother too much with that section right now. Coming around over to this side, one of the other things that I did over here is not a whole lot of action. Added some more ground foam and a tree right in here by the turntable area. This tree is going to get replaced with a bigger one. Basically the look that I was going for is I really wanted to create a look as though there was some really old tree that had been there for many, many years, and so it was left untouched by the railroad. And so I've got some ground foam in there, and we'll have a bigger tree kind of right there in that place. And maybe some benches and things like that for some workers to kind of sit down for lunch or whatnot. Looking beyond that, you can see the turntable is looking a lot better. I have finally, after having this on the layout for over a year, finished the tower piece as well as the house on there and the railings. I've also added some weathering. So you see some rust down at the very bottom that may have collected, things like that to make it look old and used and just a little bit more authentic. The ladder is not weathered. As you can see, it's bright and shiny, kind of a metallic. So that has got to get weathered because that stands out like a sore thumb. So that's one thing that I still need to work on back here. I also will need to put a power line in from the top of the tower to a power pole. That'll come in time. I'm not rushing too much. Obviously, it took me over a year just to get the tower on, so hopefully I can get the rest done in less than a year, but I'm really happy with how that turned out. I just needed to kind of dedicate a weekend to getting it done. Moving forward, down here, this switch up front used to be powered. I pulled the switch motor off of it and replaced it with a just a hand throw. This being so close to the edge of the layout, a lot of my front switches are just hand throws up here. It just makes it easier when wiring and things like that to just have a couple hand throws. Plus, that way, you know, guests that come over, if they want to throw a switch, it's really easy to do. So I've got a couple of these front siding switches or hand throws. So I've been working on that. That switch motor will get redesignated to a switch that has not been powered just yet. So that's what's going on up here at the front portion of the layout. Let's check out the other side and see what's going on. Moving downward, here we've got the diesel service facility. Originally, this was in the plans to be an auto rack yard, which is why we've got that kind of large platform there. I just didn't have enough room for the auto rack yard, and definitely not enough room to make it authentic and have a whole parking lot of cars. Just didn't make sense. So I decided to switch plans and make this a diesel service facility. So I've got the Corber 2-stall shed here. Ordered this, took about 2 weeks to kind of get it built, painted, and onto the layout. Happy with how it turned out. This was in the last video. Some of the other things that I've done around this, though, I've added a new parking lot here. We've got some piles of wood, a dumpster, and some other scraps and things like that to make this scene look a little bit better. Of course, we're trying to make it look authentic, and there's a plastic Thomas train there, but bear with me. Behind this, we've been working on some ground cover along that back wall. You'll notice there's a lot more foam in and around the cracks of the wall and things like that, trying to make that look as authentic as possible. Panning this way, we've got some ground foam in around this portal, and some ballasting has been done. And I've been adding some trees to this section of the mountain as well. Small brush and things like that. And then one of the trees that I've been working on that we'll look at again in a minute. Panning around, not too much work has been done over here. I do have a shadow box coming to go up top. I'm excited for that. That should be here sometime in late April. We come around this way. My attention has not been on this end of the layout. We did a lot of work early winter on getting this top section looking a little bit more realistic. And then that kind of stalled out as I began working over at the train station. So not too much has changed over here. Filled in some seams and things like that in the platform or the table itself, so that those are done now. I can make some more scenes and things like that over here. I'm debating what I want to do with this space. I've got quite a bit of space, so I was thinking, well, I've got this industry here, maybe a house or two, some yards and some fields. This pop-up here in the middle, I was thinking of doing maybe an orchard of some kind on that, something with small trees that won't get damaged when that pops up and down. So anyway, open for suggestions if you leave a comment at the bottom of the video. So that is a pretty big overview of what's been done over the past couple of weeks or month and a half maybe. I think it's a decent amount of progress, but I'm hoping to get a little bit more done before the weather really turns and gets warm, because once that happens, progress in the layout really seems to bog down. So before we run some trains, let's go ahead and jump into some of the trees that I've been working on, and I'd be happy to hear some of your comments on those. All right, so now we're in the shop area in the back of the basement, and some of the trees that I've been working on, I made a video that should be right before this one on the channel on how I make these. If you haven't watched that, basically what I do is take green crafting wire, take like 17-inch strands, about 20 strands or so. You wrap them up, and then you kind of make your trees. You really have to watch the video to kind of get an idea. That was not a very descriptive, a very great description. Here's one that I'm working on. So this tree is a little bit different than the other ones that I've made. It still needs to be filled in a little bit, but you'll notice how thick the trunk is compared to some of the other ones I'll show you. This small one just uses my old technique, so you'll see the trunk's a little bit skinnier. Now this is obviously a smaller tree, but what I did with this larger one was, after I had spun all the wire and made the trunk, it was really skinny, about as skinny as the small one. So what I did was I actually just took my hot glue gun and I just added hot glue all around that trunk area, filled it in to make it look nice and thick, and that's just created, I think, a better look overall for that tree. The other thing I'm working on are some pine trees, and so here's one of the pine trees that I've been working on. And how I've been working on these, I've been taking coconut fiber that you would have in a hanging basket. I just ordered a bunch on Amazon, cutting them up into small circles and peeling them apart, and then adding them in layers, taking some spray adhesive and some conifer green coarse ground foam and rolling it in that, and then adding a bigger trunk to that tree so we can make some long pole pines. Those are on the layout. I've got 2 of them on there. They're okay for right now. I think they need some more detailing. But let's go check them out. All right, so we're back here at the mountain scene of the layout. You'll notice there's a tree up at the very top there that's kind of slanted. There's some work that needs to be done up here, but these 2 trees are what we're looking at, those long pole pines. Those are the 2 that I've made myself. I think they look pretty good. They look a little silly against when they're contrasted with these other trees here, but we'll adjust. You'll notice I've got some stumps and things back here. What I want to do is maybe make a scene where it looks like there's maybe a timber industry. So in timber industries, you'd see these long pole pines where the trunk's really cleaned up. They're growing them nice and tall, and then they'll cut them down. So add a couple more of those back here as well. I have one long pole pine that I bought from York about a year or so ago, and it's right up here. This cost me about $30, but I wanted something big and that stands out. You'll notice there's a lot more detailing in the trunk here than what I've been doing. And this thing looks great. So I'm going to try my best to replicate this look, or maybe pull this off the layout and sell it and just go with what I can make, because I can make these trees for probably about $2 a tree when it comes down to it. So it's just a lot more feasible to go with what I can make than buying things from the store. If we come over here, you'll see one of the trees that I've made there with the wire technique. I've also got a couple. I had one over by the turntable that we mentioned earlier. I've also got 2 placed down here. So these have not been blended in with the ground, but their shadows prevent you from really seeing the roots or anything like that. Notice how small that trunk is. That's why I'm starting to use that hot glue technique to make that trunk look a little bit thicker, maybe a little bit more realistic. But when we look from the top, I think those trees look really, really good. And as I said, they cost less than $2 really to make per tree. And you're making them in bulk. You can knock out a few at one time. So that's really where I've been focusing my attention the past couple weeks. I really think when you add trees to the layout, it really makes the layout pop and kind of provides a new dimension to your layout. So that's kind of just where my attention's been right now. It's also relatively inexpensive, so that's always a good thing too. So that's all I've got for this update. Thanks for tuning in. Please leave a comment or like the video or subscribe. That helps me see or understand exactly what you guys want to see. Let's run some trains, and we'll call it a day. Thanks for tuning in.